Grace and peace to all. Grace and peace to all. This is Pastor Ben back. We're just trying to pop in on this Saturday morning and get everything started. I hope everybody's had a blessed week and is doing amazing. We're gonna give a few minutes to let everybody come on in, and then we're gonna get started with another Saturday morning episode of Live from the Resource Center. All right, all right. All right, looks like we up and going on Instagram. I want to say what's up to all my people on Instagram. Also, everybody joining us on Facebook. All right, let me get everything loaded. Let me send out the alerts for Facebook. And then we're going to get started. We're going to talk about a few things, and then we may, in our What You Reading portion, talk a little bit about our book that we have chosen for this month. Everybody Eats, Communication and the Paths to Food Justice. So I just want to let everybody get in and let the alerts go out. And then we're going to get started. We're going to get started. Give me 2 seconds. And we're going to do that. We're going to get it on the Resource Center page. And all right, we got that up. All right. So once again, I want to welcome everybody to Live from the Resource Center. This is a new episode, Saturday mornings. And we're going to do it proper like. So welcome. And let's get ready to get the show started. All right, welcome everybody to another Saturday morning of Live from the Resource Center with Pastor Ben. As you saw on the caption, on the screen, make sure you subscribe, like, share, and comment. So first, to get this show started, as always, I want to welcome everybody and just say it's just a blessing to be back before you. I found one of the original LFRC hats, so I thought I'd break it out this morning, along with my beloved Benedict College, who formed and shaped me to who I am. I don't know what that may be to some, but who I am today. But nevertheless, if it hadn't been for this wonderful institution, I don't know where I would be. And all the love that was poured into me by my professors and just friends, and just it was just a wonderful experience. But nevertheless, let me start off by this. As we know, this weekend is a very big weekend in the United States, particularly because number one is the weekend where we celebrate Mother's Day. and we celebrate those who have upheld the institution of motherhood, um, which is definitely a large task, especially if you have young men like myself who were a handful when we were younger. But we celebrate them, and we show our love and appreciation for all they've done as husbands, who have created life with these individuals. We celebrate them for what they mean to our home and family structure. So I want to say deeply to all the mothers, right? Happy Mother's Day, and we love you. And in that, I want to highlight one of our mothers of the movement who we lost recently, I believe back in February. And not February, I'm sorry. We lost a while back, but was one of the uh, mothers of the struggle. Um, and we commemorate and we want to celebrate some of our mothers. So I want to highlight one of them today. And I'm going to try to pull it up real quick. So I need y'all just to be patient with me. There we go. I hope everyone can see that. But we're going to Adley Moore, better known as Queen Mother. Queen Mother Moore was a prominent Harlem civil rights activist, born in the late 1800s, right? July baby. I'm July 7th. She didn't quite make cancer, but she was close enough, right? Born in Louisiana, but she ended up in Harlem in the early 20s and joined the UNIA with Marcus Garvey, the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And then she upheld the fight for civil rights and justice here and abroad, right? Became the president of the Universal Association of Ethiopian Women in 1950. She founded the Committee for Reparations for Descendants of U.S. Slaves and the Republic of New Africa, which demanded self-determination, land, and reparations for African Americans, right? In the late 50s, as you see here, 1957, she petitioned the UN, right, for reparations and land for the people of African descent, right? And then she continued her activism on through the 60s and 70s, right? She was there at the Million Man March where we honored her, and then she passed in 1997. So I will post this link in the chat. Anybody who's watching, if you want to go to that and look up Queen Mother Moore as we celebrate the legacy of our mothers in the struggle as well. So let me put that in there. So if you go to the chat, you will see that link for Black Past, where you can look up the information on Queen Mother Moore. But happy Mother's Day. And once again, we celebrate our mothers throughout. Also, this is a big weekend because it is graduation weekend, and we've already had graduations taking part in this area beginning Thursday and Friday, and there's more today. And what better gift to a mother, right, than to see her child walk across that stage? But it's a very exciting time for our young leaders and future leaders, right? Taking this big step. They're leaving this part of their journey to go to the next, which may be graduate studies, which may be the workforce or whatever. But this is the time we corral around them and guide them as they take this new step in life, the real world, right? If they're diving into it or going further, right? This is where we corral around them and give them the most love and support as they begin to move into their roles as the next generation of leaders. Um, but I want to give a shout out to all them, all the professors who have uh, taught them, all those administrators and faculty that pour into them to get them to this point. We know it's not just the professors and stuff. You have those that advise. You have those that work in housing and all this stuff, and provide services for these students to get them to this point. So we celebrate all of you at our colleges across the nation. And we are truly grateful for what you're doing to support these young folks in achieving this goal. Let me turn my alerts are going off like crazy. So want to dive into a couple things. We'll talk about some things that's going on locally and point to that. I don't know. I try to stay out the weeds. I just kind of give a overlay and stuff. When we start getting more of you on here to comment and share, to join us live and pour in. And if we have some guests, you may see my dog. There's one of my dogs right there. She likes the camera. Say to you, first of all, I'm the only star of this show. You don't do that. You don't do that, right? So, I'm a dog. Well, I'm an animal guy. We got cats, dogs. Had an axolotl, but unfortunately, Luna passed. We guinea pig upstairs. So, if you got animals that you can no longer house, just call my wife. We'll take. No, I'm joking. Don't do that. Don't call my wife. But anyway, first thing I want to get to that's big in North Carolina that happened this week. For some that may know or been paying attention, right? Since November, we had a big race for the North Carolina Supreme Court between Jefferson Griffin, who's the Republican candidate, and the Democratic incumbent Allison Riggs. And Allison Riggs won the vote by a slim margin, and Jefferson Griffin has been contesting it since November. And this battle has been going on, and finally a federal judge ruled, that Griffin should concede. In which he finally did. I believe the margin was 734 votes. It was a very close race. The issue that came about was that in Griffin's attempts to appeal and reverse the decision, he was trying to protest about 65,000 ballots. And I know there were many organizations that were rallying around to gather people who may have been some of those that might have been a part of this protest of their ballots. And I know there was some protesting of a lot of the military ballots that were coming from many places. But this has been going on, and it's kind of been a fight, right, to protect those voting rights of those who may have had their votes protested. A lot of the ballots that were protested from the military, overseas voters, was the fact that they may not have provided copies of their photo ID or ID exception with their absentee ballots. But this is a part of a greater struggle that's been going on since the 90s that we've seen here in North Carolina, with the efforts to gerrymander districts, and we know that particularly as of late after the 2010 elections, when Republicans gained majority or won control of the General Assembly, we saw this beginning to take place in 2011. And we saw the delegation maps then take a huge shift, right, and a split in favor of Republicans, which by 2015 it was a 3-10 split. And then we know that a new district was formed right after that to kind of bring a little more balance. But we do know that in 2016, there was a ruling that those districts, particularly the 1st and 12th congressional district, were ruled unconstitutionally, racially gerrymandered. And that was by the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of North Carolina. And then the Supreme Court upheld it, Cooper v. Harris. But, I bring all that up to say this, one of our main rights, right, as individuals is our voting rights, right? We pay taxes. Let me get my stuff up. Y'all didn't tell me I didn't have my backgrounds, right? There we go. Now I feel fresh dibs. But, one of our basic rights, which has been fought for dramatically through the history of our nation, is voting rights. And just in general, in the principle of being American, right? What that may mean, one of our essential rights is to vote and participate in our political process or democratic process, if you will, right? But what we've seen over the past few years are more and more attempts to challenge that. And I look at this, and it's not to go far left or far right, but it's to understand that regardless of where you are, left or right, you serve the people. And if you truly serve the people, why would you make so many efforts, right, to infringe or impede or impose or suppress their basic right to vote? This is what we work for. When we pay those taxes, right? When we give back to our communities and buy into them, when we participate locally in things to improve our communities, our cities, right? Our state, right? Why would you impose these things? But we see now that finally this has settled, and we just hope that it will bring balance so that all will truly be represented. The struggle now is we've gotten to this binary fight where you're either this or that, and we lose the understanding that they have to be for all. You have to be for all. And that's what is lost in this now, because it's like us against them. And in the end, it's the basic or just the citizen that is harmed in this. But what the hope is that now with this balance, we can truly begin to represent all, and not go through these situations, right, to maneuver and manipulate for unfair advantage, right? Because in the end, we all lose. We all lose. So I'm hoping that, now that this is over, we can get back to the business of serving the citizens of North Carolina, which I am one. And I hope that now we can focus on the issues that are impacting our state. But on that note, I don't think I have the flyer, but I know Wednesday. Let me get this information up. Because I don't want to leave out anything or misstate anything. Y'all be like, man, look at Ben. He don't know what he talking about. He don't know what he talking about. But I know on Wednesday, the 14th, coming up, I know the NAACP of North Carolina is sponsoring the Legislative Advocacy Day, where we will be gathering at the General Assembly, right? Area 1 in Raleigh. And then there will also be some things going on at First Baptist Church right there on South Wilmington Street, 101 South Wilmington Street, North Carolina. If you're a member of the North Carolina NAACP or one of its local chapters, make sure you register. I have actually registered, so I'm gonna try to be down there in Raleigh, just seeing what's going on, because I've joined, but I hadn't been as active, so I'm trying to get back into those roles and do some of my civic duty. Shout out to Brother Mackey, William Mackey McKee, biographies, books, and TV. Shout out to you. See him in the chat as he salutes Queen Mother Moore. There he is. And once again, welcome to all those who are viewing, who are watching. We greet you. But if you're in the Raleigh area, this will be taking place. Once again, hosted by State Association NAACP. So that is Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. So your brother's gonna try to be down there to see what's going on. All right. Another thing I want to bring to discussion. We won't get in long. I don't have a lot today. But also this week, just looking internationally, right? We've seen the escalation between, and even going into what was called a nuclear standoff, both possessing nuclear weapons. And now, as I've seen of late and watching certain news outlets and everything, both are saying that they want to peace and seize everything. But, one side is saying, well, we're going to pause if the other side pauses or whatnot. But they're doing this. But one thing I want us to understand, a lot of times we see these more recent conflicts or certain wars or certain things without really knowing the history behind it, because some stuff may be suppressed for long periods, some may not, right? But this is a conflict that is going back to the late 40s, early 50s, after the British occupation of India, right? And then I believe 47, India received its independence. And then you had this area of Kashmir that became a place of contention to where now India owns or governs the east part, I believe, or the western part, and then Pakistan now governs the west part. But in this occupation, the groups involved were the Muslim groups, the Hindu groups, and the Sikhs. And then it split, and then you had the split in India, Pakistan. I'm just generalizing, so I don't want to get in trouble and be like, don't. But then this thing has centered around the area of Kashmir, which both countries govern a part of, and even I think China governs certain parts of the north. So this has been going on for years, but we also know there's a Western influence, because for years, maybe the 70s, we know the U.S. has been supplying weapons and resources to Pakistan as well. I think more recently, China has been working deals with India. They formed BRICS, which is economic union, but they've been trying to improve relations and they've been doing things. But we see these things that on the surface they escalate between these two nations, but they impact a lot of the world because everybody has a common interest. And we know as of recent, the U.S. has been trying to improve relations with India, really by way of its it is dealings with China and Russia, and, in the BRICS coalition. So we understand these things may have an impact on all of us. I'm not going to go into that depth or go into that rabbit hole, but one thing that is evident is the issue of the impacts following these occupations. As I brought up the other week when we were talking about what's going on in Burkina Faso, and as I always say, it's just interesting that we see in these reports like this country gained its independence then. They gained their independence, and we put dates on this, but these people have been in these lands and these places for thousands of years. But then they only get recognized after they gain this so-called independence from these foreign nations. And then we don't look at the impact of the occupation and colonization that takes place in these places. And then what we often see is unrest over certain issues and we got to look at the hand, as they say, we see Lindsay, we don't see the low hand. KRS, shout out to KRS-One. But we look at the impact and the after effects of these things, because many times, take it how you will, many times, even though these countries, and as we go back to Burkina Faso and the West and ECOWAS and the occupation, even once these countries get their independence, right, that still doesn't come without a certain interest that's left by these nations or these occupiers or these nations that have colonized these areas. And usually when we see that, it usually leaves these countries in certain aspects still somewhat maybe depleted, or they often certain things are left unstable. And then we see it play out, and then it looks like, oh, look at these nations, they can't get it together, and they do that. And that's one thing we try to demythify, right? Because we have to look at the after effects of these things that have taken place and what truly has caused division or caused these nation states, right, to be so unstable. And usually after they gain independence, they usually have no infrastructure, right? No economic base that is of their own to support and build up the institutions they need for their citizens, or they have to fight for it. And sometimes that gets ignored, and we just look at the conflict and don't look at what it stems from or what it grows out of. If you look at right now, once again, going back to Africa, even though they had gained independence at these particular times, even back to Thomas Sankara, we still look at the interests of those former nations that occupied them. And once they went against that or kind of challenged the governing hand of these states, many of them were executed. And it's been a struggle for these nations to truly have independence or function independently of. And now we see with Burkina Faso and Mali and Niger, the Sahel states, they're trying to build an independent infrastructure, right? Which to them means they have to remove the influence of the nations that occupied them, right? So because we know in a land that's rich with resources, well, let's what we talked about going back to the Berlin Conference, right? A continent with, let's go here. Africa is a continent truly that really doesn't have to go anywhere else in the world to get minerals that they need. They have everything: cobalt, gold, right? They have agriculture. They have, but what they've been subject to is needing the infrastructure and the ability to refine and cultivate a lot of these things, which has been suppressed. And now we see this movement to do it, and it's causing an uproar, um, because, right, many are still trying to keep a certain hold or leverage in this area because it's so rich with resources. That's the same in many places around the world, right? Uh, People try to, even though they gain their independence, right? People still try to keep their influence there, to keep their leverage there for the resources and the wealth of the land, right? But I just think back growing up, you know, we used to see the pictures of the continent of Africa, and it was always, you know, propagated to us as a struggling land, and it was poor and just, but even in that, every nation is trying to get stock or get a place in this continent, right? Because of all the richness of the land. So I'm not going to harp there on that, and I'm going to influence everybody to try to do more research, and maybe we'll pop during the week some articles up and stuff on what's going on in India and Pakistan and with Kashmir. We'll try to update everybody, with what's going on in the Sahel states. But we do need to be aware of these things because whether we believe it or not, these things will impact us. And just like even in the discussion we had with Dr. Douglas talking about food justice and certain things, there's certain aspects that we think, well, we're not directly involved with that. They don't impact us, uh, but they do. They do, and they impact us indirectly. And we have to be mindful because we're only getting a lot of the information from a particular ideology, right? So we've got to dig and search and really see and really know the history of what's going on. So now that's my spiel as a former history teacher, right? That's my spiel. Um, I'm done with that. But still, um, not going into the history, but just to touch on things. I was watching Al Jazeera, and just giving updates on the conflict that's going on in Gaza and everything. And now the UN is trying to push um, the state of Israel to allow some of the aid and stuff to get in. And I think they had marked it since about the beginning of March, maybe, that they've had about 3,000 aid trucks that are bringing supplies like water, food, medicines, that have been blocked. Um, and in the midst of that, many have been displaced. And so you have all these agencies that are not able to get this aid in to the Gaza Strip. And I know the U.S. has been in talks with trying to maybe encourage some private agencies to get on the ground and try to get some aid in there, but they want Israel to kind of form the uh, the private groups to administer it. But I know there's been some delays and some struggles in these talks. But the one thing I want, and I'm going to take the humanitarian approach, because we understand this, regardless of which side you're on, there are people in the midst of this that are suffering that have nothing to do with this conflict. And we have to remember that. And we have to understand that at some point our humanity has to take hold. I'm putting on the hat of the Pastor Ben now. At some point, our humanity has to take hold, and it has to outreach political identification, political ideology, economic ideology, um, the power struggle, right? It has to outlast that, because the one thing that we wouldn't want for our families and our loved ones is to see them suffering and there's nothing we could do about it. So I appeal just to the human side of this, that we see that, and that we figure out something. And I hope those leaders on the ground can see that and work that, because when you're able to watch or be okay with innocent people suffering, it tells a lot about you. All right, and I'm gonna leave it there. I don't want to get shadow banned, but the one thing about human connection is that if we connect, at least on that level, right, it would be very difficult to watch another brother or sister or child or whatever, or sibling, use that language, or sibling of the human family suffer. So let's think about that. And when we go into our prayer closets and to our prayer tables, or however, in our meditations and stuff, let's pray for the humanity of the world and the human connection to take hold and take lead in these situations and all the conflicts. Because in the end, once again, we have to understand that there are people that have nothing to do with this that will suffer and be impacted the most, right? Think about those, as we, it's Mother's Day weekend. Think about those mothers who have those children in the militaries of these nations and in these groups who are now impacted by it. So I appeal to our hearts in these situations to just understand that and pray to that and breathe upon that. Take in the Most High on that, right? Breathe that in, meditate on it. And let's send our love out to the world. I'm not going to get all that deep. I got my bracelets on, you can see, got them, give my energy back, right? But I do want to send that because one thing, and I'll tell you about me, it's been very difficult to navigate this, because I'm one that struggles with looking at the loss of lives and people suffering. Now, granted, there's more I can do here locally because we see that, and I try, but hurts my heart when I can't do anything, or I'm in the midst of ripping and running and can't even help those that are struggling here. But I'm trying. But that's the only thing we can do. We can try and continue to pray to get better at it, right? And do better. Because, if anything else, like, we got differences of opinion, religion, ethnicity, whatever, social, whatever, all these things that divide us. But the one thing that doesn't is the fact that we are human. We are a creation of the divine, the Most High, right? So that's one thing that they cannot divide us on. So if we get back to the most essential element of that, we'll find our connection with one another. And then we can start to build and rise above these conflicts that keep us divided or separated, or that harm. So I'm going to leave that there. We're winding down. We got the last 20 minutes. I don't have too much more. I ain't been running my stuff, and my production team, they going to get on me about that. They going to get it. But once again, I want to remind everybody, make sure. Now, I'm running this right here, but I'm thinking we may move to the 8 o'clock hour. I like 7 a.m. because it's quiet in my house. I can really flow, except for, my dog. She one of my dogs, Sadie, she likes the camera. But I like the 7 a.m. But we might be thinking about moving it up an hour, just so we could try to make sure everybody's up or coming in and get a little more engagement eventually in the chat. But but remember, every Saturday we're going live. And then, if you can follow us, you can email us at the RCB store at Gmail, or you can follow us on IG, right? At the RCB store. Facebook, you can go to the Resource Center Bookstore on Facebook. And I have those links also in the description for those on YouTube. If you want to go to the Facebook page, follow. We're trying to get that page up and going. Also, send us an email if you want to get subscription. I can put you on the email list of subscription to Substack. So we can get that out, and middle of the week, well, let me say this. I'll be, posting some stuff during the week, and if you're on the Substack email list, you'll get those emails to follow those things and those posts and those things I'll be talking about. So please email us so we'll have your email, and we'll get that out, and we can send updates and flyers to things. So before I get into what we're reading for the month, I had some trouble pulling up this flyer, but I do want to update folks. If you're watching and you're in the Greensboro area, if you're in the Greensboro area, let me pull it up. So I want to start. Hold on, let me pull it up. Y'all work with me, give me a little patience. But once again, while I'm doing this, I'm gonna give y'all the reminder. All right. So I'm gonna update some things that's going on in the next week or so. All right. So, and now this for anybody in the Greensboro area, checking my phone for this. On May 17th from 1 to 5 p.m., the Piedmont Blues Preservation Society and Safer Cities present the Blues and Foods Market. So it's their spring fling, and they'll have some live music, food and craft vendors, and some community resources. This is a free event, and it's going to be at the Renaissance Shops at Phillips Avenue, 2521 Phillips Avenue. And that is May 17th from 1 to 5. And I apologize, I don't have it. I just got the text, but I'm going to try to get it up so I can post it on the Instagram page, the Facebook page. So if anybody's interested in going at from 1 to 5 p.m. on next Saturday, May 17th, the Piedmont Blues Preservation Society and Safer Cities will have the Blues and Foods Market, their spring fling. And I think they're going to have some food trucks. I know my man, my brother Karinga, Rifu, be giving out the lemonade and limeade, so you don't want to miss that. But that is at the Renaissance Shops at Phillips Avenue, 2521 Phillips Avenue in Greensboro, 1 to 5 next Saturday. Also next Saturday, let me bring up an event that I will be attending. Now, the ticket sales were supposed to close yesterday. I'm not sure. They may still be open. But if you can and you're in the Triad area, one of my former players that I coached on the basketball court, but is now a star in the NFL, and that is DJ Reader, who plays the Detroit Lions, will be having his 3rd annual Toast to Education Gala on Saturday, May 17th in High Point, North Carolina, from 6 to 10 p.m. And that is at the Congdon Yards, which is in High Point, North Carolina. So you can go to the website, asonneverforgets.org. I'm gonna post it in the chat, asonneverforgets.org. But jump on there. I know the ticket sales were supposed to end yesterday, but they still have the button up. So you may be able, they may still have some tickets available, but I'm going to pop that into the chat. You can go there. Interesting stat. And I want to thank I apologize if you hear some grinding going on. That's my wife getting her smoothies. I told you this is a very organic show. I'm like Rodney Dangerfield. I get no respect. Nah. But interesting fact, and I want to bring this up, and this is the great research. But an interesting thing, just back to what we were talking about. 473 million children live in war zones, and that's nearly 1 in 5 children globally. So let's get back to that element of humanity. Let's do that, right? But in the chat, it's in the chat, the link to the website, Son Never Forgets. And also DJ has his annual football camp that will be taking place in June, but we'll get more of that. The registration opens on Sunday, May 18th for that football camp. So we'll be plugging that a little bit more. Probably beginning next week, and we'll get that information out. So if you're in the Greensboro Triad area, it's a free football camp he does every June, and they have food and shirts and everything. You'll meet other NFL players that come to work the camp. So we'll get that out. If you know anybody who's interested, they got youth ages 6 to 15, I believe, they can go to the camp. DJ Reader's football camp. Son Never Forgets. Other than that, I don't have. June 7th, and like I say, I'll get these. Try to get these posted up. They were sent to me in PDF. I got to get them in JPEG so I can get this information out to everybody. But June 7th. Let me find it. June 7th. And I also work at one of our local city Department of Parks and Recreation centers, Pila Recreation Center, District 2. Whoop, whoop. Pila Recreation Center, which is also off Phillips Avenue. But on June 7th, another free event, there will be the International Friends and Culture Fest, the 3rd annual that will be taking place, which will be a celebration of the community, right? And as always, there's food tastings, it's a community fashion show, there'll be some dancing, some live music. And One thing that um, Northeast Safer Cities, City of Greensboro, Reverdy Bank. One thing they've done a great job with this is bringing many of the community groups of or the multicultural community. They come out and share portions of their culture, whether it be dance, music, crafts, food, whatever. They usually come out and celebrate, and then we celebrate the community. We have usually Cone Health brings their truck to provide health screenings. I know last year, I went and found out my blood pressure was up a little bit, so I'm truly thankful for that. um, but once again, it's a celebration of the neighborhood. Um, and that's Saturday, June 7th. But I'll get more. I'll try to get the color flyer and get that posted up. But that's in Greensboro, here in Greensboro, at Pila Recreation Center on June 7th. And I have that information coming in the next couple of weeks. But it's a great event. And one thing we need to be focused on, and especially as we get older, y'all see my gray. I'm not a spring chicken. But we've got to take our health more seriously, right? Especially if we're getting older and we're slowing down. We're not in the softball leagues and the basketball leagues, and we don't play and go and participate in these athletic activities, or we're not working out as regularly as we used to. Then we have to be a little more conscious of our health, like what we're eating, what types of things we're doing to reduce stress. These are things we got to be mindful of, because we know we have the pressures of life, and stress can take you out. It puts that cortisol in your body, in your system, and it can harm us, right? So please, if you are in the area, come out to that so you can take advantage of those health screenings and everything. So we got a few minutes left. And like I say, always the last portion of the show, we talk about what are you reading in our book for the month. And I'm going to put it up there. I hope the light doesn't throw it off. Once again, it's Everybody Eats: Communication in the Past to Food Justice. And we had Dr. Nice Douglas on our Wednesday Wisdom to kind of discuss some facets of the book. And I'm going to be honest, y'all. We had just hit the tip of the iceberg. My light is so bright. I'm gonna try to. But we hit the tip of the iceberg, and most of the stuff we talked about was kind of the beginning. I would say we stayed in the first chapter, but there's some more depth. We're gonna dive in, and I'm gonna try to have her back on. Maybe not this week, but maybe the week after, to kind of dive in. But one of the interesting things she said when we talked about what does food justice look like, and she pointed out, many times the first thing we gravitate to is the political aspect, or trying to get policy or fight for this or protest this, right? Or it stays in the governmental context. But she said what's one thing that's important. She said it just starts in your home. Like, what are you educating your children on eating, or what does your family decide to eat? Are you buying locally? And she put major emphasis on that. Like, just buy local, like your local farmers. Try to support your farmers markets and local farmers. Buy local. Because that strengthens the food system, so that we can sustain it. So she said that's where it starts, with food justice. And I thought that was impactful, because we when we hear justice, we automatically get in a political sense. But one thing that I've learned with this book is that many of our food systems are not as stable as we think they are. And I'm not going to get into what is a food system. We'll do that a little later, or maybe on Wednesday Wisdom, we'll get more in that. But, just like when we were talking about, the cuts and the SNAP benefits and WIC and stuff, and how many farmers rely on that for the majority or a huge portion of their income. If those things are cut, those benefits, then that farmer takes a loss, and then they may have to shut down. And then now everybody in that community, that area, or the grocers that depend on it, or the communities throughout that depend on it, are now at a loss, because now that farmer or producer is not able to produce enough or produce anymore. So we're all impacted by that. So it just shows you how fragile the food systems can be. But furthermore, in just reading it in chapter 2, what I thought was beautiful was they still kind of laid out like the layers of food, just like what it looks like, right? In the short term, like what you can do to address it. Then they did kind of in the midterm, what it looks like, and then long-term things. So they lay out those things. And just the need in understanding communication, because a lot of times they say, we throw out community engagement, but it's so general, and it's what does it look like? What is the community? What is that? That can be complex or not. So they push to this understanding of communication of food justice, advocacy, and how do we communicate these things when we're pushing for stronger food systems or sustainable food sources, so we can overcome the issues of food deserts and food insecurity as we grow toward food security. So very powerful. And I'm gonna hold it up again. So if you haven't, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it at Barnes and Nobles. Is it Barnes and Nobles? I said I did that. That's a sin in my book. Noble, Barnes and Noble, right? But it's Everybody Eats: Communication and the Paths to Food Justice. So pick it up, Dr. Marianne LaGreco and Dr. Naisha Douglas. And lastly, as we close out, I'm gonna just say, the beautiful part, and I had this discussion with Brother William Mackey McKee, is that, Dr. Naisha Douglas is the community-based research scholar with NC State and their Center for Environmental Farming Systems. So she's doing it real time and bringing us real statistics, real data, real conversations that are being had in the midst of all that's going on. So, these are more conversations that we're going to bring to the forefront, as we fight this, because as the data has showed us, 19 million Americans live in food deserts. And food deserts doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have food. Sometimes we think the desert depleted, there's nothing, but it has to deal with certain societal constructs and individual constructs, right? It's access, right? It's access. Some people may not have transportation to get to the grocery store. They rely on public transportation, which has limits on how many grocery bags you can bring. Some may have local marts or grocery stores, but they don't have the full access to a large variety of foods, right? There could be inhibitors that are economic, right? They may not make enough money to fully be able to afford quality foods, right? And to the distinction of food swamps, to where most communities may be surrounded by bad food choices, right? So you have that. So there's a lot of stuff that has to be communicated. There's a lot of definitions that we have to get clarity on to understand the dynamics of food justice. Um, but I leave it at this, in her words of advice: make sure we buy local and support local farmers, um, local producers. Go to your farmers market. It makes me want to go by there today. I may stop through there today. I'm a member of our co-op, which supports a lot of local farmers as well. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I see it's 8 o'clock, and we're gonna get out of here. But if you want to donate to the show right now, you can go Venmo to our nonprofit Clergy for Cures and donate. Uh, Once again, remember to like, subscribe, share, and get it out. In the description, once again, is our Facebook and IG if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on IG, hey, thank you. Continue to follow us, and we'll be getting updates. But what are you reading? Please share with us. If you're in a book club or anything, shout out to my cousin Pat Brett, who shared what her book club is reading. But please reach out to us and let us know what you're reading. We're always open uh, to whatever. So on that note, I pray that everyone has a blessed Mother's Day weekend, and those graduates, once again, salute to you. And I just pray everyone has a blessed weekend full of love. And we'll see you Wednesday Wisdom. Check us out. And then every Saturday, we're back here. So peace, love, and blessings I send to you and with you.